The worst company in the world is breaking more world records with exploiting their consumers yet again with their ethical surprises. So you might have heard EA is now trying to rebrand loot boxes and ignore all of the negative effects that they have had on the gaming community and on the world of gambling in general. Not by actually clearing up any of the issues with them, not by making their existence more transparent or even by removing them, but by saying that they are totally ethical. And they're not calling them loot boxes anymore. They are surprise mechanics. Honestly, you can't make this shit up. Representatives from EA and Epic had met with the UK's Parliament's Digital Culture, Media and Sports Committee, and the Vice President of Legal and Government Affairs at EA told a member of the United Kingdom's Parliament that people like surprises, which is why we've implemented these types of mechanics. She also said that they are quite ethical and quite fun, comparing them to Kinder Eggs, a chocolate treat with a toy in the center. So they are trying to use the excuse that loot boxes or surprise mechanics have existed for many years now. They are just a blind box style of item that you do sell to children, which is fair to try and attempt to do. Because if you didn't think too much about it, yes, they do have really a lot of similarities. Except for the fact that we are trying to compare something that you physically own to something that you do not physically own. And with loot boxes, I mean you do not actually own the item. If you get banned from the game, the server, the platform, you do not physically own that item anymore. You forfeit the rights to that item. Also, loot boxes in most cases have an entry fee, like a $60 retail price for a video game, and with a Kinder Egg, you just buy one or a couple. Also, EA, when they had started loot boxes, they were blind boxes that you did not know the odds of what you could get out of them. And there are actually lots of different options of items that you can actually obtain in these EA blind boxes, loot boxes, surprise mechanics, whatever you would like to call them. It's not like a chocolate egg with a toy that maybe there are 5 different variances of toys and they all have the same drop rate. I'm pretty sure that this is all more comparable to gambling rather than chocolate children's eggs. EA brought this all on themselves. They were warned that if they did not clear up their act and implement new information for loot boxes, like the percentages of what could drop and how often it could drop, or, I don't know, stop selling them altogether, that they would be investigated and their awful business practices would be investigated and their predatory monetization methods would be investigated, and they did not take it seriously. And I completely understand that a business needs to make money. Obviously, a game does not make money past that initial wave of sales. But I think that people much prefer the way that DLC used to work, where once every 2 or so months you would have to purchase DLC packs with new maps and expansions, and you would get a large chunk of content. It would have an expansion to the story, or you could just purchase a season pass, which usually is another $60, which you get all DLC ever released for the game. And I get it, people do not like doing that, but it is much less predatory to tell people what they are purchasing and what they will actually get in this season pass or in the DLC, rather than having loot boxes pop up saying, you have to purchase a loot box to get an item, or here's a box with a randomized item out of maybe 100 or 200 items, hopefully you get that one thing that you have been wanting from it. And I do understand that as the years go on, a project gets larger and technology continues to advance, games have a higher development cost and you need to bring in larger teams for that project. But they really have started to blur the lines between what is acceptable and what is pushing the boundaries of average consumers. But the problem here is that, of course, things like loot boxes or surprise mechanics are much more profitable. They do not care what consumers want, they care what they have to give. And EA has been doing this for years. It is not just in recent times. One example is, of course, the sports games, games like FIFA, and another is Star Wars The Old Republic, the MMO. I am an avid lover of the Star Wars The Old Republic MMO that launched in 2011, which is developed by EA and BioWare. What a great team, by the way. And since about a year after it launched, it had these things called hyper crates. And hyper crates are things that you could buy for real money, which you get 24 loot boxes in that you can open randomized loot from. And that is a game from 2011. And it was not very important to a lot of players because they were just cosmetic items. And you could also purchase them through the Galactic Trade Network, or the auction house as most MMOs call it. And they were less predatory with their loot boxes then, because 1, it only had cosmetic items in it, 2, you could buy it for the in-game currency from the Galactic Trade Network if people were selling them, so it is an alternate way to obtain them and to purchase them, and 3, you knew what you were getting in these loot boxes or these crates, the specific things and the multiple things that you would get in these hyper crates. You would get a guaranteed armor piece, a guaranteed weapon, a guaranteed companion gift, and things along those lines. And that is not what they implement in these new games. If this is one way that they could have implemented these things like loot boxes into new games, maybe people would be less livid with it, because they feel like they are getting more of a bang for their buck, and they are not just getting completely scammed. They are getting multiple items, and they also have alternate ways to purchase them. I think that EA really needs to realize who they are selling games to, who their average consumer is. Their average consumer does not appear to be someone that is interested in microtransactions. They are consumers that are interested in full and complete games, and they are people that are not afraid to pay for a season pass or DLC that completes a story further. They are in such denial about microtransactions being looked down upon by literally everybody. They are willing to call them surprise mechanics and quite ethical and quite fun. And the woman that was saying it, the vice president, did not even believe her own words, which was the most hilarious part. She wrote that, and she did not even have faith in her words. They really need to realize how predatory these things like microtransactions are, and how many people they are pushing away from their titles that have the letters EA on them. Feel free to discuss microtransactions, loot boxes, and EA in the comments section down below. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to give it a like, and of course if you did not, make sure to give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either which way. Make sure to follow me on Twitter, and also feel free to join the Discord. We have a Dark Titans Discord. I hope that you enjoyed this video though, and I will talk to you guys again in the next one really soon.